Welcome everyone. This right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. And if you're finding this anywhere else, if you're watching the playback, whatever, the place where we do this live is twitch.tv/deepmindfulness. Folks, it is so exciting to be here with you today. Let me know if everything's coming through clearly. Liz is back. Welcome, Liz. Maury's here as well. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you. I have great news today, folks. We decided to do a little meditation today, which I'm very excited about. So that's today. And I heard the bell. I must have knocked it over. We didn't have the bell for our last meditation, so we had Raquel actually saying ding, which is a little different than having an actual bell. But if you don't know, Raquel was here last Friday. We did a whole big thing on the multiple self model. So if that's of interest, check that out. It's on the replay. It's a huge thing that we've been using to help people in kind of whatever situation, but the general premise is that we have these different selves, and a lot of our ambivalence and inner challenge, etc., is created out of these selves sort of having different needs and struggling to get those needs met, often in an unskillful way. So, folks, we're going to be continuing our practice, focusing on new, and what that means is that we're going to be observing new experiences as they arise in our sensory field, and that will get us attuned to the way that our senses arise, which is very important for meditation in general. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, or if you'd like, you can drop them in the Discord, which is now open. Our Discord is nearby, and here's something I wanted to let people know. So our tech support is listening, but he's also playing for a cash prize right now on his live stream. So he's going to be a little bit sort of in the background, a tiny bit. But the answer is wish him well, and we're here meditating in hopes that Tamalan will win this Battle Royale prize playing a little Fortnite. So, what a sweetie. He just posted our Discord link. Thanks so much there, Tamalan. But don't take your eye off the ball. Make sure you're kicking ass in that game. So, folks, wish Tamalan well in the chat if you'd like. I will do that. Oh, wrong keys. Oh. Okay. That's what happens when you have your hands on the wrong keys. So, awesome. We're going to meditate for about 25 minutes, and we're going to then ask questions. So any questions you have, you can drop them here or in our Discord. And in the Discord, we'll just put those in the general questions. Oh, we actually have a question here. Oh, let's see. Questions. Lewis has a question. Oh, these are some. Okay. Frank has a question. Okay, so we'll if we don't have any questions that are live, we'll get into Frank's question that's a little bit offline, or that happened offline, or if you want to re-ask. If you're here, Frank, then perfect. Okay, folks, so finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. Typically, what that's going to mean is you're going to sit at the edge of a chair or a cushion. We're trying to balance being restful and also being alert. So typically that's why people will sit when they meditate. Your hips, basically, if a person is facing this way, your hips are sort of, one of the ways that they rock is this way. So if your hips are tilted down just slightly, sitting at the edge of a cushion, and they tilt down just slightly, and typically the only way this can happen is if the knees are lower than the hips. This allows the lower back to naturally curve and balance, and this allows the upper back to naturally curve and balance on that. We have a double curve in our spine, which is due to evolution turning us from being primates to upright. And so we have these two historical turns. It's very interesting, actually, to feel the body and recognize that the way we can be comfortable today, the balance that we have, is a balance based on millions of years of transformation of this body from primates. So unless you are what is that called? A creationist, in which case, hey, I don't even know how I would describe how you be comfortable is, I think you maybe pray it out. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how we transfer that for the creationists in the crowd. Folks, finding that nice, comfortable position. Oh, Nick's here. Hopefully, Nick, you're feeling better. And if anyone else is, I know Nick is coming from Sweden. If anyone else wants to let us know where they're coming from in the chat. Hello. I meant to say hello from Brooklyn, but hello Brooklyn as well. Okay, folks, finding that nice comfortable position. And we're going to practice in stillness. So if you need to adjust the body, just take a few moments, maybe take a breath or two before you do so, and do so mindfully. And when you're ready, we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. We've come to this moment so many times in our lives that the mind can tell us that this particular moment is no different. So there's a way in which we have to allow and recognize that this moment is completely different. This moment has never occurred and never will occur again. And this is our one chance to gently discover it. So starting from the top of the head, relax the brow. Relax the muscles behind the eyes, allowing the eyes to just sink back in the skull just a half a millimeter. Relaxing the face. Relaxing the back of the tongue and also allowing it to drop back. Just following gravity. Letting go of any need to hold the jaw closed. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders. The upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, just letting the body breathe as it will. And noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly, no need to hold it in. Relaxing the lower back and the tailbone. This will often allow the hips to relax themselves. Relaxing the upper legs, knees and calves, the ankles, and relaxing the feet. And we can either actively relax or simply feel relaxation throughout the body. So this is any neutral or pleasant sensation. And most of the body should be in that range at this point. Unless we're experiencing a fair amount of pain, in which case we simply find the area that feels either neutral or pleasant. Allowing the mind to zoom out to contain all of the restful sensations rather than any one in particular. Letting go of detail in favor of a sense of all sensation. And in this field of awareness of restful body sensations, simply bringing up some awareness of breath sensations, not needing to zoom in or collapse around them, simply attending to them just a bit, along with all of these other sensations. And we're finding the balance between these two, an awareness that's open, and maybe even open enough that it begins to contain other senses. It's fine. And some attention to the detail of the breath. Each time we notice a balance between these two, in the mind we can use the label all, just to represent this comfortable stasis, this balance. And no matter what the distraction that arises is, just letting it fall into this soft awareness. It doesn't need to compete. Just including it in the background, not a problem. Our distractions are typically an example of our attention being pulled to something and then having a hard time bringing it back to the object of meditation. This is quite natural. So instead of needing to push anything away, just finding this balance again. Inevitable distraction and inevitable sleepiness or agitation is best dealt with by simply restarting the structure. If we judge our practice, just including that as another distraction, no big deal. Now we're going to make a slight transition. Beginning to attend to body sensation, letting everything else go, and paying particular attention to the newness of any particular sensation. That there's constant change, movement. The mind itself moves, and each time in the mind we can note new. Riding the edge of the present moment as it appears to us. Each time you detect a new sensation, even if you felt it before in the past, it's new in this particular moment. And in fact, every sensation we feel in the mind, we can note that as new. So it's not just sensations that are novel, it's any change, any widening of awareness, any expansion of the sensation. We're simply riding the edge of the present moment. And noticing each of the new body sensations as it arises. And now letting go of this, turning to sound, the hearing experience. Noticing each little glittering change, each little bit of data as it comes in contact with consciousness. And we may find that there's so many instances of new that we can't label quickly enough. That's fine. We can label in what we might call packages. 5, 10, 100. Just labeling every so often, and that label can refer to a number of previous experiences of new audio. In effect, we're sharpening the refresh rate of the mind, reconnecting with the present moment over and over, and allowing each audio experience to be new. And now, even with the eyes closed, noticing the seeing experience. The darkness of closed eyes, but also our sense of space, our sense of a room or environment around us. The sense that the body is below. All these spatial arrangements the mind makes. And noticing that perhaps the experience itself feels stable, continuous darkness. But notice that the mind has the capacity to refresh these experiences over and over and over again. Showing them to us as though we were just now born. And this is the first time we've ever had a seeing experience. And back to the body. Feeling all the new body sensations as they arise, or as the mind becomes conscious of them. And again, transitioning to hearing. Watching the glittering soundscape, even if it's silent. Watching the silence appear instant by instant. And now to seeing again. Observing the mind's ability to stay right here on the razor's edge of the present moment. And each seeing experience is brand new. And now finally letting go of any technique at all. Letting all the senses exist together. Not needing to do anything. Just letting the momentum of observing new play out. Continuing the practice, continuing in stillness, allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes, and eventually allowing the eyes to rest on one point as they fully open. noticing the new experience of seeing. Each instant revitalized. And letting this moment of transition be the great teacher that shows us how to bring this practice into every moment of our lives. Okay, so making any adjustment you need to allow the body to be comfortable. We'll jump into any reports. They say in therapy that the only tool the therapist has is the unedited voice of the patient. I love that. The unedited voice. I once brought that up to a therapist, but I had the quote wrong. And the quote that I'd heard was the only tool the therapist has is the voice of the patient. Which my therapist promptly corrected me and said, actually, the theory goes that the only tool the therapist has is the unedited voice of the patient. So of course this is not therapy, but your voice is pretty essential for me to be able to, A, do my job, one part, but also B, be helpful. So it's lovely. We have some more folks rolling in. Let us know where you're coming from. And P.S., if Tomalin is listening in, I want to hear how the competition's going. Our friend in tech support, Tomalin, is in India, and he's in the middle of a Battle Royale cash reward competition, so I'm curious how that's going. So, let's see here. Oh, thank you for the report, Liz. I'm going to read back here. Oh, yeah. So let's see here. Nick said, let's see. Okay, Nick is Swedish. I thought you were in Sweden as well. Feeling better. Good. I'm glad Nick had a flu for a while. No, you didn't miss anything, Tomalin. I just wanted to make sure that you, how the competition was going. Just wanted to find out any updates, how you're doing. Liz says, during seeing with eyes closed, there is actually a lot going on. Sort of pulsating, dull color. Great. So the way I was guiding that was without assuming that there was something going on, because some people just experience that as totally black. So I was focusing a little bit more on the mind's tendency to refresh. And so it's funny, the mind has these two overlapping tendencies that basically make our sort of, general reality. Oh, lovely. Nick, Frank, thanks for listening to the insight part on the subway. So we have these two overlapping things that basically, in part, create our sense of reality. So the mind has a tendency to be able to instant by instant refresh the present moment. Just, oh my God, I just was born for the first time. This is part of why I don't know if anyone's watching the new show, Picard. It's a new Star Trek, very nerdy new thing. But one of the premise, and this is a classic premise of sort of artificial intelligence, is this idea of maybe we're a robot that's been programmed with all of our memories. Westworld had a lot of this in it as well. And there's sort of really, truly no way for us to tell with our senses directly, because if we just imagine right now, poof, we are just born into this moment. This is the first time we've ever existed, and somebody very carefully programmed a bunch of memories. There would be really no tangible way to tell. It could be an elaborate, what is it called? What was that movie? That movie with not Tom Hanks, with Jim Carrey. Whatever. It's the one where he's in a enclosed area, and they're filming his Truman Show. They're filming his life all the time. And there's actually a Truman Show syndrome, where people who are, thank you, Liz, where people who are schizophrenic. I think that's typically, people who are schizophrenic have actually, they started to come to like a police department and say, hey, listen, I just want to let you know that I no longer want to be part of the reality TV show that's filming my life. And there's something called, Truman Show syndrome, where people were actually reporting that they feel that this is occurring to them. So as sort of tragic as that is, we can see right now the seeds of that because, hey, everything I said didn't exist. It's actually this moment. And so the mind has that tendency. One is to refresh again and again and again. And getting into that experience is really, really powerful for allowing us to feel like the present moment is rich and transformative and delightful and new and has all these surprises for us because it's always new. And then there's this other part of our mind that you could call memory, but I sort of want to put memory almost as a secondary function. But it says that this moment is not new. In fact, this moment is just sort of the leftovers of the previous moment. And one big way that this expresses itself in meditation is the mind saying, this is boring. I've done this before. This is stupid. Or just sort of saying why is this moment interesting at all? Why am I paying attention to my breath? Why am I paying attention to my senses? And as you were mentioning, you were seeing a lot of colors. You were seeing a lot of sort of movement and activity. So that's also something that can come up. And it's also this idea that the mind can tell us this is all new, and the mind can tell us this isn't new. You've seen this a million times. We typically want to first tone down the part of the mind that doesn't see things as new. It sees everything as this old thing. Why should I do this? But the other side of that is that we then want to start to see the mind producing that sense of everything, time passing. So at first we want to kind of tamper that down, and then eventually we want to get very clear without getting pulled into it, without getting pulled into this idea of a narrative. So one of the things about the kind of, I don't know if I have a better word than transcendent, but the stuff that's talking about classical awakening, really deep, transformative experiences is in large part related to this, this shutting down of, or breaking away of, this tendency of the mind to, make everything, seem old and boring in that way. So there's that. And, Eternal Sunshine, Eternal Sunshine was another one that explored the mind in that way. What's the relationship to noting flow? Okay, so Frank asked, what's the relationship to noting? Oh, I got to go back here. There's some missing stuff. Let's see. Oh, Tomlin says he had a good game today and will not qualify, but gave it his best. That's great. Well, listen, that's how life is. Sometimes we qualify, sometimes we don't, but we do our best. So I'm very happy you made it. So Frank says, much energy coming from surroundings. Absolutely. And Liz says, Truman Show, what's the relationship to flow? And so I want to just zoom out a little bit so people know this term. Flow is a term used by our teacher, Shinzen Young, who many people here know. And it's a broad term, and the shortest way that I can describe it is dynamics. So something is dynamic when there's movement or forces interacting with each other in some way. So one way to think of it is, okay, that's movement. My hand moved, right? It was here, now it's not. Flow could also be scintillating sensations. There's sort of bubbling, that kind of thing, bubbling water or bubbling sensations in the body. So that could be a flowing experience. But something people often don't get, this is different than it's different than the flow, which is basically the flow that people talk about in psychology, which is basically a kind of samadhi, or the mind being very locked in. This is talking about a kind of way that our senses are dynamic. They tend to be dynamic. One thing that people often don't get is they say, well, I don't experience any flow in this moment. It all feels very stationary or static or still. And it's helpful to know or to notice that actually something can be still, right? My fists are still right now, but if I push against them very hard, right? There's a lot of, tension here. My hands are shaking because it's pushing so hard. It's still right now, even though, I'm putting a lot of effort into this being still. So actually what we're looking at is a dynamic of forces. So even when something's still, it's actually often created by two forces pushing against each other. So that's one thing. So how does this relate to flow? This is exactly related to flow. And the thing is that it's a sort of hairline difference. And it's funny because I'm like, it's just related. I don't even want to get into the strict definition because I feel like it'll get too technical, or just sort of too nerdy. I haven't even thought it through myself, but it's highly related to flow. And typically when people notice this instant moment, it's almost like a freeze frame that you notice, like, okay, this moment, and the mind will freeze it for a second, and then it'll go whoosh, and get replaced, and whoosh, and get replaced. So here we're almost observing the freeze frame and like shrinking down the temporal size of the freeze frame. And typically in flow, we're watching the movement, moving, or the change in that way. But to split those two apart seems like a little unnecessary. It seems like a little artificial because they're highly related. Okay, what's the relationship to flow? Eternal Sunshine. Sometimes I feel like we should watch these cool, like, heady movies like Eternal Sunshine or even The Truman Show and just watch them together and just chat meditation around them. Might be fun. So any other questions or reports here? What's going on for folks? We're going to be continuing this, the new process for the next few live streams. So in less than 48 hours, we will be back here doing more new practice. I think I was going to do something else, but I thought of today it's really fun. I think this is what I'll guide on Wednesday is this idea. I've done it a few different ways. One, that you're just now born, like this is the first time you've ever had contact with reality. I do it like three ways. One is you were just born. Another one is that you're a time traveler and you just like stepped out of whatever time and you're in this time. They're all just ways to get the system to really pay attention to what's new. And the third one I like, but it can get people tripped up, which is this idea that you're from some other dimension that doesn't have seeing, hearing, or feeling. It's not something that we have in our sensory memory of any kind. And we just arrived in this dimension and we're going to be zipped back away in an instant. And we're going to need to absorb enough in this instant to be able to write an encyclopedia volume about what is it like to have, contact with the body for a second. And I like that one because it tends to be so alien that it's like, and there's a little bit of pressure. There's like, oh, I really got to pay attention, and then eventually the pressure goes away because we realize, well, that pressure is going to be part of the, report if we don't, get rid of it. So really just letting it be new. And the thing that happens though is sometimes people get caught they're like, oh, I wonder what that other dimension is like. I wonder, whatever. So we'll do something in that range. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. So Nate says, then we would need to watch The Matrix too. Yeah. I think The Matrix might be a good idea. Not the sequels, but the original. It's hard to put The Matrix in context because it just seems like another movie now, but it was pretty impactful at the time. Frank says, got it. Thanks. Well, thank you. Mr. Nobody is a good start too. Mr. Nobody, I don't know that one. I'd be interested to hear about that one. Maybe we can find like synopses online because, watching a 2-hour movie would be tough. Speaking of movies, I just saw, what's that movie? Uncut Gems. Yesterday? Wow, it was only yesterday. I saw Uncut Gems. I'm sure, has anyone seen that in the chat? Just let me know if you've seen that already. I won't do any spoilers, but boy, it's very effective at making the viewer feel the tension of this person's life. It's very intense, and it was very intense. So that's interesting just in terms of as a meditation for the viewer to pay attention. Okay, this is the sensation. It's funny because this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a number of arguments about money in the movie. And then someone called me in the middle of the movie as we were watching it at home. Someone called me at the middle of the movie and said, hey, I got to talk to you about this thing. I volunteer for this group and I help them with their treasury, whatever. And he's like, hey, we got to talk about this thing, whatever. It was something about how like I had paid for something and like they owed me money and it's been like 9 months or whatever. And I found I was like immediately falling into that self that was like, where, when are they going to pay? Immediately there was basically the character, the self from the movie. And I found I was really going through the emotional experience. It was just very funny to watch that self arise. And it felt very sort of like not like me a little bit, although it was me apparently. or the me that was me at that moment. Okay, folks, so we're going to sign off. Less than 48 hours. Super exciting. And P.S., I'm really hoping to have Raquel back here on Friday. That's been going really wonderfully. We've been loving having her here. If you want to watch the playbacks for this, you can jump to her second YouTube channel. Tomlin, if you are off the competition now, just throw that link in there for a second YouTube channel where all the playbacks are living for life. They're here on Twitch for like a couple of days, but they're on lifetime supply, and the other place you can go back and watch old ones. And we're now naming them correctly, because that has been something we've been trying to do for a while. And I think today is going to be, what was the main topic we talked about? This one will be about basically new part 2. What do we name it? New part 2. What was it? I'll go back and look at the really good question that we sort of started off from. I was talking about the freeze frame of the mind. That's a good, the freeze frame nature of the mind. We'll use that as the title. Okay, folks, great to see you. I'm going to turn on this ending music, and I can still see your chats. I can still hear you. Oh, and I fixed the music, by the way. It's no longer the bad music. It's the good music. The introduction to the multiple self model is the last one we did, which is great. I would highly recommend that, especially if you're in the class, the Progressive Shinsight class. And then here is the YouTube channel. That is, this is the YouTube channel for all the playbacks and any of our long form content, guided meditations, those kind of things. They're all going to live there. Okay, folks, we're going to launch into our outro. No, that was our intro. But it's great to see everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. Lovely to have you here. Thank you, people who are still here. Liz, Lurks, nice to meet you, Lurks. Feel free to follow if you'd like. Nick, good to see you. Maury, Nate WV, thanks for joining. Commander Root, thank you for being here. Mindfulness Bot, very kind of you to join. I look forward to seeing folks soon. Let me know if questions arise. And I wanted to get to Frank's question from Discord, but we didn't get to that today. I gotta exercise my doggy. I gotta get out there and run that sucker around. He's gonna go crazy. Great to see you, folks. Okay, I'm gonna end this stream. Great to see you, folks. Have a